Hi guys, welcome to Real Food Recovery. Hi Jamie, how's it going with you?
Good, good, good. Glad to be here.
Thank you. Me too. I'm always happy when we meet together and do this stuff because today we have a topic that I think is really interesting when it comes to the effects of ultra processed food. It's an interesting topic, and I'm going to start kind of with the obvious. We know that processed food is a real and pervasive issue. That we've established that. And with the high amount of sugar, fat, and salt in processed food, it can be as addictive as drugs. We know sugar can act like an opiate in the brain. It triggers the release of dopamine, which is the brain's reward system. And it creates this cycle of craving and consumption that can be tough to break. So today, we're talking about this powerful tool that can aid in the recovery, and that is writing or journaling, which you might be surprised, but it is tremendously helpful to many people.
I agree. Journaling really can be a form of catharsis. It can be something where people use it as a tool to kind of pull all of the negative thoughts or questioning, circling, swirling thoughts out of their mind and put it
Mhm.
down on paper. And it really that purging or that cathartic sort of cleansing that happens when you're getting things out of your head and putting them down on paper can really be a major, just an absolute game changer for people in recovery or in any kind of self-care practice way.
Mhm. No, I agree. And before we go any further, I want to share what I do, and then I'm going to ask Jamie to talk about what she does when it comes to journaling. And by
Yeah.
the way, if any of you are listening and you're like, well, I'm not really good at it, guess what? Me neither. I'm not great at journaling. I don't love it. I write once a week in our family journal, and I hope that when I kick the bucket, somebody in in my downstream line will fight over that, but it's almost like a mini history book for our family. And I like I said, I do it once a week and I don't love it, but I have to force myself to do it. And it is not usually how I process my emotions. So I think that's part of it. Also, my ADD kicks in that I've got to sit down and be still and do it. But I'm always open to learning more about journaling and thinking of it in a different way because I know it helps so many and it's often used among our RFR members. I do know that Jamie and I are about to finish writing a book, and I must say that I came to love the process of writing in that way and creating sentences. I've got a math minor, and I almost think of these sentences like as balancing equations. Just writing the perfect sentence has been almost a math challenge for me. So it's been very rewarding and really stimulated my creative side. I was surprised at where that project took me. I had no idea it would move in that direction, but I really liked writing about my past and putting those thoughts into words. But Jamie, I want to hear what you think about journaling. How does that fit in your journey? How do you feel about journaling?
Journaling has been I would say a balanced part. It hasn't really been a huge part of my recovery journey because I actually would rather I process my thoughts and feelings verbally. So
Mhm.
writing for me is one tool to use when I can't, have a verbal conversation with someone I trust. And for many years at the beginning of recovery, it was a counselor who I had that relationship with and I trusted, right? A mental health, mental well-being counselor that I had a relationship with.
Mhm.
And I used that counseling relationship in lots of, different ways to learn how to, who I was and how I showed up in the world and how others perceived me. Like it was a self-awareness exercise as much as it was, a counseling session, because I really didn't know who I was or how I was perceived, because I had such a distorted perception from all of the trauma of childhood, um, and my young adulthood. But as I came into my recovery cadence on my own, right, I was sort of developing my own recovery. I think recovery chops, for lack of a better word, and I was learning what worked for me and what didn't. Re My journaling, I did have a period of journaling, that was very helpful to me, and it was that, I don't there's lots of different names for it, but it was from what I referred to it as, show up and throw up, or wake up and throw up. And it was just, I would just write. There's some people call it morning pages. I just woke
Mhm.
up every morning without doing anything else, and I just literally dumped everything that was in my head back out onto the page. Now, for me, that was important because we all know for women, cortisol is highest first thing in the morning. So
Mhm.
before I got out of bed, to be able to sort of dump everything out of my head and onto a piece of paper was very helpful. Um, but what I realized was it was, after a while, it was very cathartic at the beginning, and it was very helpful at the beginning. But after a while, it kind of allowed me to see that I was really having a lot of the same thoughts, or I was spinning in the same stuff, and I wasn't really giving
Mhm.
myself solutions. I was just kind of spinning in whatever the problems were. And again, at the beginning, it was very cathartic. And after a while, it was like, okay, it's out of me. And now I need to be a little bit more industrious in solving these problems, or giving myself
Mhm.
mindset about these issues. Like something, I had to do something different.
Right.
But again, I wouldn't have seen that if I hadn't taken the time to journal it.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Yeah, you saw the pattern.
Yeah,
That's brilliant.
exactly.
Really. That was a gift.
Yeah.
So,
And then journaling became, then after that, it became very intentional for me. It became a
mm,
way for me to notice those thoughts first thing in the morning and begin to write different areas, different responses to those negative thoughts into those areas of my life. So if I had a negative thought around a certain meeting that day, or a relationship that in my life, I would be able to reframe it in that journaal, and then, write an
mhm.
affirmation for it. And or a prayer around it, something like that. And journaling became a path for me to really sit in prayer.
Oh, I like that connection. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, kind of really is a different form of prayer.
Mhm.
It can be a spiritual
It
element
was
too.
for me very, and
Wow,
that's how whenever I journal, it's me and God now, because
that's
I
beautiful.
can't change those thoughts without his help.
Yeah. Thank you for, I just had a huge light bulb moment because I really had never thought about it in that way. That's brilliant. So, I mean, that's why we're talking about this today, right? So if you're new to this whole concept and want to give it a try, then you just start. You just start, and then it will lead you, right? From what you just talked about, it will lead you to where you need to go. And you might start, one place to start, if you don't know where to start, is start by writing about your relationship with food. You can Google questions to write about, or just the simple ones are, when do you crave processed foods the most? Or what emotions or situations trigger these cravings? We had Florence Christophers on, uh, that I think it was last week, and she talked about everything before a binge is emotional and everything after a binge is chemical. So,
Mhm.
there's an aha moment that you can write about. And another question could be, how do you feel after consuming these foods? So there's no right or wrong, no right or
Yeah.
wrong answer.
100%. And when I think about the patterns, right? So Paige and I were just talking about journaling. For me, helped me identify patterns in my thoughts, patterns in my behaviors, patterns in my even in the way that I would uh, process a problem or process an opportunity. It would always like illuminate the patterns. So writing can be helpful to identify patterns and triggers. It helps us understand the triggers sort of as the first step in managing them. So we're
Mhm.
not going to always, hit it out of the park on understanding how to solve something, but journaling for many of us helps us identify the first step towards managing them, and allows us a chance to make a game plan. Again, when we see things on paper and we get it out of our head, we can look at it more objectively.
Yeah,
And that's a huge, huge help. When we think about discovering patterns, it helps us to know in advance, um, because when we look at the patterns that we're writing about, we can see what we can do, right, to overcome them. So we know when things are effective or not effective, right?
yeah.
So if we are writing and we're seeing that we're writing about the same thing multiple days in a row, and we're like, okay, there's something here that I'm not connecting to. There's something that I'm missing, right? Because what I'm doing, how I'm applying my solution is not working. So
Right.
I am just going to figure out a different way to come at this problem or come at this issue. And
Mhm.
journaling allows us to see that.
Mhm. No, I love that point so much about discovering these patterns and triggers. It's literally a blueprint right there in front of you of what's happening in life. And we talk about that a lot in our Zoom meetings in RFR. And I do appreciate knowing in advance where my wobbly points are because it gives me an advantage, right? The
Mhm.
upper hand. So oftentimes it is the evening hours that's the hardest for people. And I always say, okay, that's great. Now you have the opponent's playbook and you can prepare for what's coming. You know, if
Exactly.
you know in advance, evening time is the hardest. Fantastic. What are we going to do about it? You've got the answers to the test already,
That's
and
right.
it's not going to be evening time isn't to be feared, it's just to be strategized, which helps me to remain calm and confident at the same time because I feel safe and protected that way. Evenings are the hardest for me too. So I know in advance that I make sure that I have an appropriate dinner, I brush my teeth. I usually spend evenings at home doing things I enjoy to wind down and go to bed early. And that is a huge one because everybody, people with addiction aren't their best late at night. That's just basically an inarguable fact. So going to bed early, I've known because now I've had enough patterns that I can watch if I know how that turns out every time. And so I schedule my socialization earlier in the day. It's not that I'm not willing to socialize. I just know I need to do it early and I prefer to be home in the evenings because that's generally when I feel the wobbliest.
Yep, I agree. Another big bonus in journaling is that it gives us a place to write down specific goals around, especially around our behaviors. So goals around eating, goals around how we're going to care for ourselves throughout the day. So some examples here, I will replace my afternoon snack with a piece of fruit or vegetable 5 days a week. I will drink a glass of water before reaching for something. For me, I have a regimen of so many different supplements that I have to take right now. I mean, I'm talking, I take pills from the minute I wake up to the minute I go to bed. Like there are pills that I'm taking or supplements that I'm taking at this point. I must have the most expensive urine on the planet.
Can you
Uh,
not donate that somewhere? Can you not put
seriously,
that in the garden?
seriously. So I mean, it's undeniable because whatever I'm doing is working, right? That they tell me I'm getting better, but it is just
That's good.
an insane amount of supplements. If I counted them up, I mean, it's probably dozens of pills per day. Um, so when I think about for me, um, I tell myself, okay, I have my first meal later in the mornings usually because I have to have certain amounts and regimen of my supplements on an empty stomach, and they have to
Mhm.
be timed apart from each other. So
Oh,
I
yeah.
have 3 hours upon waking. I have 3 hours of pill taking to do before I can even think about a meal. So I'll tell myself, okay, I have to have this and this and this, and then I can eat a meal. Which is good because my body now has sort of gotten used to all of the water that I drink and all of the supplements. It's kind of my stomach has something in it. Um, but it's not easy. It's not
Right,
easy.
right. I know. You're doing fantastic, by the way, with all you have to juggle. It's amazing what all you do. But I do appreciate this point of using journaling as a place to work out what your goals are because it holds specific meaning to me because it was part of my first success. And that one specific event early on literally changed my life. In a previous recovery group, we used to do some writing and the term for it was writing a play, and you would do that before a challenging event. Basically, you would write this story in detail of how you wanted the event to turn out and very, very specific in detail of people, places, things, times, all of that, so that you could visualize what this event was going to be like, so that you could get through it predetermined. Your brain was calm, it knew what to expect, and it had a plan. So you might even add in there what your feelings and emotions might be. But I remember telling the leader, I'm like, do I really need to write this down? Can't I just think about it? I wasn't big into writing at that time. Again, ADD kicking in and a little bit of laziness, but she was very no nonsense lady. And she said, write it down. I'm like, okay, okay, okay. So I did. I wrote it down, and I put pen to paper, wrote out the whole event that I was getting ready to go to. And I had my very first ever sugar-free event. And I know, had I not written that journaling exercise down, I don't know that it would have turned out the same. But it also helped me to make a hard decision. I had journaled about it. I had a plan. I had a plan to get up from the table as soon as dinner was done and start washing the dishes, go to the bathroom when everyone was eating dessert. And it felt like I was making a personal contract with myself since it was written down. For me, that felt more binding than if I had just thought about it without making it official. So writing down your goals does make them more tangible. You can revisit them, track your progress, and adjust as needed.
Yep, I love that story, and I like what you said about how it really became more tangible, right? It became a contract
Yeah,
when you wrote it down.
yeah, is binding. I
Yep.
was bound to
That's a
that.
very, very good summary of that experience, because a lot of people don't think about it that way. But for somebody who's wired like you, that could be a very powerful reason to do that.
Yeah,
We
worth a
think
try.
about the option of doing daily journaling practices. That can be structured in different ways, right? You can do those morning pages like I talked about, starting your day by
Right.
writing down your intentions, or just getting your thoughts out and then writing your intentions or prayers. And you can even record healthy practices you want to do that day. You can do journaling at the midday of midpoint of the day, a quick note about how your day is going. Are you sticking to your goals? What challenges have you faced? What do you want to do differently the rest of the day? You could have evening reflection. I've done this as well, where as I get ready for bed, I'll have an end of day reflection on successes and setbacks. What
Mm.
worked well for me? What could I improve tomorrow? What do I want to maybe set right tonight before bed? Sometimes
Mhm.
there has to be a conversation to be had, or a to-do item that I have to check off. Um, that allowed me every night to sort of have um, a process of checking in with myself, and from the day earlier, and then also planning the day ahead. I've done the morning and evening, and I've had equal success. For me, I like the evening better, I think, because it's a reflection point. The morning I don't use as journaling as much as I use it as prayer time. So again, that's just, but I grew up, my recovery was grounded in the 12-step world, and the 12-step world does do an evening reflection time.
Mm.
So,
Mm.
when you're doing steps 10, 11, and 12 every evening, right? You're reflecting on your day. And that's a very, very, in the 12-step world, a very, very powerful exercise. So I really like that, because it allows me to see what I've done, and then also look back on anything that I need to sort of clean up, or things that I need to plan ahead for the next day. But then that morning time is spent with God, right? Spent, you know, in prayer, in intention setting, well, for me, it's asking for his will for me. And then I set my intentions based on that. Or I share what I hope to do that day and ask him for guidance, and then write down what I hear in my prayer, but at prayer time. But again, that's meaningful for me. And that's how I've evolved in my recovery. And sometimes at night, I will also, in addition to just a quick check-in with myself for the day, from the day's choices, I'll also spend time with my inner family and do some internal family systems work, if there's something that's on my mind. So I use that and that's not journaling, that's just talking out loud to those
Mhm.
parts of me.
Mhm. I love your suggestion about nighttime because I don't know about you, but does it help you sleep better? Like if you get it out so you're not having to continually
Mhm.
ruminate while
Yes,
you're trying to sleep? Yeah,
yes,
I can
yes,
see how
and
that'd be so
especially,
helpful.
yep, and for people, and again, alcohol was not my addiction, but um, when they developed, right, the founders of the 12-step world developed this program, it was all around making sure that all of that was sort of purged out of you, because an alcoholic would go out, nighttime was their time.
Oh, that's true.
So they
Good
had to
point.
get that out of them so they could go to sleep without a drink.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. That's another great point. I'm learning so much
Yeah.
today.
Yeah, food
I've never, go ahead.
food was not my, I never had nighttime eating issues really at
Mhm.
all with food. I never would be a up late at night eater. I just wasn't. But because I was always such an early riser. But here's the thing, when you spend that time, you have an evening ritual, it kind of precludes any need to even think about eating
Oh,
because
yeah.
you're
Comforting.
busy.
That's very comforting. Yeah, I love that idea. And I've never done the daily practice, but I love the philosophy of giving it a try and seeing how it works. And all of this with journaling is you just see
Trial and error.
as I said, it's Goldilocks. You just keep
That's
trying
right.
beds till you
That's
find
right.
the one that's just right.
That's
And
right.
you just never know till you try. So I know if you are having a lot of cravings or setbacks, writing about them can be helpful, describing what you're feeling, what might have triggered the craving and how you handle it. And as I mentioned, we have heard that everything before is emotional. I'm just going to say it again. And everything is after a binge is chemical. That's worth repeating.
Mhm.
So honing in on what's happening beforehand is my point, can be immensely helpful if you are implementing that journaling practice. That process might be especially helpful for understanding and managing those cravings better. And it's possible that things just might pop up unexpectedly when you are writing things that you might not have discovered before. And that has happened to me even as yesterday I was writing in my journal and I had some things just kind of, I don't know, you're able to articulate it. I think that if you're writing it, the brain forces you to articulate it and think a little bit deeper about your feelings. And there's always discoveries made. Um, but yeah, I know that does happen for me when I'm writing. It just forces me to put my thoughts and emotions into words. And I get a clearer picture when I'm able to articulate and put language to my emotions.
Yes, yes. When we think about, journaling, it's the whole idea of journaling. A lot of it, especially at the beginning, was a chance for me to put that reframing practice into focus.
Yeah.
So the idea that when I'd notice negative thoughts, negative, repetitive um, thinking or repetitive sort of things that I would perseverate on around different problems or situations, then it gave me an opportunity to reframe it, right? Because mindset is the
Mhm.
only thing we really truly have control over, right? Especially when those situations involve other people or circumstances beyond our control. We need to have a way to reframe and to practice a different mindset around something, because in many situations, that's all we can control.
Agree.
It's very
I,
powerful.
yeah, I agree.
Uh, Setbacks are really a normal part of the recovery journey. So when you're journaling and you're looking at what maybe you're not where you want to be, and that's something that I've struggled with for the whole time I've been in recovery. There were many times that I was like, okay, I'm pleased, but I could do better, right? Or there were times I'm putting in everything I possibly could, and I'm not going in the direction I want to go. What's the deal?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
Setbacks are a normal part of the recovery process. They're a normal part of life. And journaling about them allows us to practice self-compassion and to see, for me, I was able to see how hard I beat myself up at first, and then how I was able to start talking to myself in a different way. And it allowed me to acknowledge my efforts and remind myself that really it's all about the progress that I'm making.
Yeah.
So if I was seeing something negative, or seeing the way that I would beat myself up around a certain behavior or certain process that I wanted to improve on, I would constantly stop myself if I was seeing the negativity on paper and say, okay, hold on, I need to do some self-compassion work, or I need to pray, or I need to ask God for some guidance here, because it was very important to me to, I realized that nobody was going to love me the way I could love me, right? And that was
Yeah.
with God's help. So I could not do that for myself fast enough once I started to see the negative patterns.
Yeah, and I think journaling just naturally brings out that reframing process. If you are being completely honest with yourself, there should be a reframe in there somewhere. I think journaling just really helps put a spotlight on that gift of reframing. Um, and if we're being completely honest, then there are lessons and opportunities in every setback we have. So that is a tremendous payoff to journaling. And we talk a lot about no one has ever hated themselves into recovery. And
That's right.
so journaling helps with that. Using our mindset to our advantage is the strongest tool we'll ever use. So we need to sharpen those skills, sharpen those tools. And it's really just a matter of practicing. And you feel so much better mentally after you've reframed something. I don't know about you, but I literally like feel like weight has been lifted off of my shoulders, and it gives you the energy and motivation to keep going and not give up. That,
That's
I
right.
mean, isn't that the ultimate goal with reframing, that you're not want, you're like, okay, I can do this. I can do
That's
this
right.
now.
Yep. And last, don't forget to celebrate your successes, no matter how small, right? So writing about your achievements and how you feel around the achievements, especially just earlier today, I was thinking about, I've noticed that I've not made progress in a certain way that I want to make progress in my healing from the mold. But I forced myself today to look at all the areas that I did make progress in, that I have
Yes,
progressed, that
perfect
I have.
example.
And I wrote them down. I reminded myself, okay, these are areas that I've had a lot of healing in, and I need to remember that before I get down on the areas that I haven't healed very well in. And that comes up for me every time I have a bad day. Bad day for me is a low energy day, a day that I
Mhm.
spent in very minimal movement, just don't want to do anything, need to rest because my body is basically taking over and saying, you're done. You're not doing anything today. And those days come uh thankfully less often lately, but they take me by surprise because it's my mitochondria doing it. It's not related to food, it's not related to movement, it's not related to I exerted myself too much because I'm not allowed to do those things, right? I have very, very specific guardrails around my food and my movement right now, and just all kinds of lifestyle habits that I have. So I know that I'm not exceeding guardrails. So it's my body every once in a while will tell me, nope, you are not going anywhere today or doing anything. And yesterday for me was one of those days, and I had to remind myself, and I didn't see it coming, and I didn't do anything to bring it on. And it was just one of those things where my body was like, nope, you're done today. And I had this day, a couple things yesterday that I really wanted to go and do, and people that I wanted to see, and I had to cancel all of it. And it was very hard.
Oh,
It's very hard to do that because I was so looking forward to my social outlets and my
mhm.
church time and time with friends that I cherish every week. And I canceled all of it because I knew my body needed rest. And it was very, very hard to do that. Just to be able to, you know, feel good enough to go to work. Like it was a junky outcome. But it is the reality of where my body is. So I have to remember that I have to celebrate the fact that I haven't had a day like that in a couple of weeks, and that I used to have days like that several times a week. So I have to remember that, that's progress.
Yeah, that was, I was going to ask you, do you see that those days are getting further apart? So you answered that question. Yay, bravo for that. And yes, perfect example of reframing. And I don't have anything big or spectacular that I do to celebrate. What I do is small but powerful. Every time I have this wobbly evening irrational hunger, I hyper focus on how I'm going to feel in the morning, and I go to that future self place in my mind. And then in the morning, when I wake up after a clean evening, I always take time to give myself a little pat on the shoulder and say, Thank you. Thank you for keeping me safe. And I am always so grateful. So I do take the time to acknowledge how good I feel in the morning and tell myself what a good job that I've done. And I really tried to build a self-trust because, again, ultimate goal, right? And when we're fighting with the effects of processed food addiction, that self-trust is the ultimate goal, that you want to feel safe and comfortable, that you can take care of yourself. It's that parent to child thing. And
Yeah.
nothing feels more emotionally safe to me than being able to trust myself.
So we are going to share a couple of things that we have heard from our Real Food Recovery group members. These community members have successfully used the journaling tools that we talked about here to help overcome their use and their abuse around and of processed foods. One of our members says that journaling for me has been something I've always done. I think better on paper, and I found it to be a good way to get all the things spinning around in my brain, someplace I can actually do something with them. I've had friends who tell me that they don't journal because they feel like it needs to be perfect. So I tell them to do what I call a puke on the page. So, yep, she and I, this member and I agree. That is exactly what it is called for me to just write whatever comes into your head, and then I can go back through and organize it then. Pick out action items, think through strategies, process feelings, etc. The next thing people will tell me is that they don't want anyone to read or see their thoughts. For that I always journal less specifically in my journals that I keep. And if I need to get rid of it, I will write on a single sheet first, then pick out what I want to hold on to in my journal and destroy or ritually burn those pages afterward. Also have done that. Very, very cathartic. Um, and as a long-term journal keeper, I've discovered the power of a group where I can get writing prompts. Often the ones I resist most are the most helpful. Agreed. An opportunity to share them and feedback afterwards. This has really helped me lift my journal practice to a new level. I have in the past used my journal to ruminate on whatever drudgery that seems to be happening in my life, and perhaps the ability to look back through and notice that pattern was a way to grow. Very true. Exactly what I shared in my process. Thank you. Thank you very much to that member.
Eh,
Beautiful.
I might, yeah, it was beautiful. And she, I think, was referencing at Real Food Recovery, we have journal prompts on the weekend in our private Facebook group, just in case anybody was wondering about that. So a couple more members have said, many years ago, a teacher told me we don't learn from experience, we learn from reflection on our experiences. I have found this to be true in many areas of my life. Over time, I saw the value of writing my experience down and using journaling techniques for reflection. It has helped me focus my thoughts and synthesize them to be more coherent. Through journaling, I have seen patterns of thoughts and behaviors, good and less desirable. And though this reflection I and through this reflection, I have been able to integrate desirable habits more easily into my life. As I begin my recovery process through Real Food Recovery, I have used the journal prompts offered every week. These prompts help me reinforce the lessons I am learning each week and add to the tools I can use. Journaling is a key element of my recovery process, and I am grateful to RFR for offering this tool so I can make better choices to have a healthier life. There's one more quick one that I think I'll share. She says, the biggest thing I get out of journaling for myself and why I journal all the time is it allows me to see my patterns and my behaviors. And when I can see those things, that's when I can make change and let go of old stories
Yeah, I
with
love that.
the present life. Yeah,
Very, very,
yeah,
very helpful.
yeah.
So here's the deal. Recovery from processed food addiction or the use and abuse of processed foods is a journey. And it's okay to take it one step at a time. When we think about starting a writing practice, it can provide clarity, it can provide motivation, and a sense of control. And that's really what we're most in need of when we start to remove ourselves from the behaviors around the food, the processed
Right.
foods. And the act of writing, we have to remember it's a powerful tool for self-discovery and change. It's not meant to be a punishment. It's not meant to be something that we, have to drag ourselves through. Really, it is an act of self-care.
Yeah, I think so too. So, if you're struggling with processed food addiction, I encourage you to start journaling today. Begin small. Without a doubt. Just begin small. Small, manageable steps. Write about your thoughts, feelings, and experiences with food. Track your progress and celebrate your victories. You might be surprised at the difference it can make.
I agree. And at Real Food Recovery, we do place a strong emphasis on writing as an aid in processing our emotions. Very, very important for our members to do this. And then we really, when we think about when and why we want our members to write, we want them, again, if they're doing it in a daily practice of some way, that's amazing. But we like to prompt them at least on the weekends through our weekend recovery prompts, our journal prompts that we post on our private Facebook group. They can go in and they can get those journal prompts and use some time over the weekend to write about the prompt that we give them. And it's idea that they're kind of cultivating those writing skills. And I see so many of our members, so many, and I was one of them. Before I got sick, I was one of the people who had such an overly scheduled weekend that I never took time for myself. I never took time for
Mm-hmm.
self-care.
Mm-hmm.
And these journal prompts hopefully are allowing our members to take time for self-care.
Good point. Great point. And through our discussion questions and journal prompts, our members have had the opportunity to do some solo exploration with these growth opportunities. Then they can come back if they want and share their thoughts with the other members if they desire. So we really think this side of the work is equal to the coaching that we do during the week. It's a time to implement all they've learned and process their thoughts as a springboard for writing their way to recovery. So I hope that everybody has enjoyed this discussion about journaling. It was more interesting than I thought it would be, even for me. So I hope you've enjoyed it equally as much. So we've got a few listener questions. Jamie, you want to start out?
Yes, listener asks, has documenting your process or progress, the setbacks you have, and the feelings that you're feeling, does this help you stay accountable to yourself? I don't know if it helps me stay accountable to myself as much as it helps me at first. It helps me know myself. It helps me connect and stay connected to myself, and it helps me um, become more self-aware. Those
Yeah,
those things for me are the foundation to self-love, and self-love creates accountability. Because I love myself and I want the best for myself, I'm accountable to myself. But if I don't love myself, AKA, how could I love myself without knowing myself and knowing what my needs are and accepting all of those aspects, right? So you have to rewind that tape a little bit. You can't just, so writing does not necessarily mean accountability to me. Writing means self-care, it means compassion, it means awareness, it means acceptance, eventually love. And then I want to be responsible and accountable for and to the things that I love. So
beautiful answer.
that's the outcome for me is
Yeah,
accountability.
I love that. The next one is, do you think journaling helps when you feel unmotivated or discouraged about your recovery? Sure, of course.
Yeah.
I think if you can start writing about what you are feeling and
Yes.
experiences, it forces you to be honest again. We talked about that a little earlier. There's just no way around honesty whenever you're writing. You might discover a newfound opportunity in the trial that you might never have thought of before. So that's the beauty of the journaling. And at RFR, we talk a lot about what is the opportunity in this problem. Let's look for the opportunity here. So it's reframing in a way and looking for solutions also. So it's just double bonus.
Yes. I like that a lot. Um, so has journaling helped you reconnect with your body and physical sensations? Especially after periods of binges or overeating. It's been a long time for me since this has been the case. Um, I would say, but when I did have a period of time, the very end of last year, right around the holiday, like the week after the holiday, right? The holiday week, essentially starting with Christmas through New Year's. I had
Mm-hmm.
some foods that were calling to me because I'd made the choice to have them. And I had to write down. It wasn't a formal journaling exercise. It was just a notes page in my phone. Like, let me write down all the crappy ways that I feel right now after eating those foods. and let me just remind myself of the pain that I'm feeling, physically, like, joints achy, or I'm not able to be as physically fast as I wanted to be, or whatever it was at the time. So again, those were, again, it wasn't a formal journaling exercise for me, but I did write it down.
I love that idea of putting it in your phone too. I'd almost set an alarm, a reminder every hour that
Yeah.
you go back and read it.
Yeah. Yes. And I did. I had it up and I would go back and read it, whenever I had cravings, and it really did help.
Ooh, that's another great tip. I love
Yeah.
that idea. Oh man, very hot tip. People, right? Put stuff in your notes in your phone because it's all about blood flow, right? That will help that blood flow get back to that frontal lobe where you
That's
can
right.
put your logic back into place because it's very hard to think logically when you've got a craving. So, okay, last one. What role do you think community plays in writing about food recovery, whether it's through sharing journal entries or engaging in group writing exercise? So funny, you should ask that. And at Real Food Recovery, we strongly believe in sharing our journaling for those that feel comfortable in doing so. Like we've talked about, we do have those writing reflection questions on the
Mhm.
weekends that we create for our group. And it is very motivating to hear others process, especially because their experiences are so relatable. That's why it's helpful to everyone because everyone can relate to what they're going through. So it also gives us opportunities to be cheerleaders for one another, which is a wonderful kind way for all of our members to interact with one another. The rising
Right.
tide lifts all ships. So we're very lucky in that aspect. Anything you want to share, Jamie, before we
No,
finish?
I think this is an important tool of recovery that is often overlooked. Or,
Right.
like for me, I dismissed this tool for a long time. I
Yeah.
dismissed it as something that I wasn't thinking was very powerful, or felt like my first few years of recovery felt like a slog to do it, and now I'm like, oh no, this is a powerful tool. Now
Yeah.
there are some people that I've known in recovery, Paige and I in our old recovery group, we were both, friendly with a member who writing was like the most powerful thing that this person could do. Like, she led groups on it. She was like the queen of writing prompts. Writing for her was everything. That's great. Like, it really helped her
Yeah.
see some things that she needed to see in her own recovery.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
it was where she had this tool, right? That she
Mhm.
that she made the most of, and it really helped her. And I think that's awesome. And
Yeah.
then there's people like me that dabbled in it until I found a way to use it for me. But there are other tools that I think are more of lifeline tools for me, than journaling it is.
Mhm.
But that's my own journey, and that's based on my own needs. And everyone is different. So if journaling really is a powerful tool for you, or it's something that you think you'll never do, try it.
Yeah.
Try it.
Well, when I get off here, I'm going straight to my phone and putting in my notes. How do I feel when I make choices that I don't want to make? And I'm going to keep that in there. And that was a huge takeaway from today. So thank you. This has been great. And if you want to know more about us, find us at realfoodrecovery4u.com. That's the number 4 and the letter U. And we hope to see you there. Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.